So after 7 games in the Premier League, United are on 8 points after winning 2 games, losing 3, and drawing another. How many games have they drawn? 2.
Couple. Yeah, against Palace and then against Villa.
In the did I say Ghana Premier League? Forgive me. See, when you lose interest in the Premier League, that's how it is. So United, you see what you are concerned.
It's not like your team in the Ghana Premier League.
It's also doing
either. Accra had to even worse.
Even worse. So welcome to United and Everything Football Podcast. It's always great to come your way with this podcast. This is episode 81. Episode 81. That's so amazing. And we thank you very much for sticking and staying with us and being a part of the podcast and being with us. We always appreciate you and appreciate everything that you do for us on this podcast. Subscribing, liking, commenting. Yes, we've built an army. And thank you for being a part of this army. And thank you for being a part of this community. There is more to come.
In good or bad times.
In good or bad times, you've stuck with us. And it's always been great having you on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'm here with Kwame Inchubuesiaku. Always with him. Started with him. Going with him. Forever with him on this podcast here on United and Everything Football. Remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Leave your comment. Please like the videos. You've stopped liking because I stopped talking about it. Please like the videos for us. It's very, very, very important for us. Kwame, what does this shirt remind you? What comes to mind? This shirt.
Our glory days, AIG, 2007, 2008, 2009. That is when we were weak. Manchester United was Manchester United.
Remember the famous Champions League in Moscow?
Boy, do I miss those times, Kwame. Ronaldo was in his pump.
I wish I could turn my back.
Oh, see.
Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's make a quick turnaround. Today we are going to talk about everything that's happening around the club. We'll do a quick analysis of the game against Aston Villa, and then we'll look at all the issues. There was a meeting in London which had Sir Jim Ratcliffe, which had Joel Glazer, which had the football leadership in Omar Barada, in Jason Wilcox, in Dan Ashworth, Sir David Brailsford, and everyone that mattered. We will tell you what the meeting was all about, what they discussed, and everything you need to know, and where lies the future of Erik Ten Hag and what is likely to happen to him here on United and Everything Football. Let's take a quick turnaround. When we come back, we discuss everything here on this podcast. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Kwame. Kwame is here with me. Kwame, let's delve straight into the issues. United, after 7 games in the league, let me show you this picture. You see a picture of where we were last season after 7 games and where we are this season after 7 games, and you can make the judgment for yourself. We've actually come down. Now, Erik Ten Hag has broke his own record of starting poorly last season with another poor start to this season. But let's look at the game against Aston Villa, Kwame. We all felt that we were going to receive the beating of our lives in a ground that we call it home away from home, because over the last 30 games or so, we've just lost 1 game there. And it was kind courtesy. They say, hey, manager, Erik Ten Hag, who went to lose there. We felt that with the form that Villa were in, they were going to cause us a lot of troubles. But we went in there, stuck together, and came out with a point. Let's listen to you on your analysis of everything that panned out in the game.
All right, so where do we start from? Let's start from the selection.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest with my viewers. In fact, you know what happened on that day. The moment I saw the selection, I chose not to watch the game because I just concluded we were going to get a drubbing. But I had the opportunity to watch a replay, analyze the game, so I think I'm well informed enough to be able to speak on it. The selection was what puts me off for starters. We spent quite a lot of money over the summer. In fact, we spent quite a lot of money over the past 2.5 seasons under Erik Ten Hag.
Yeah.
And to see him chunk almost all the players we should be seeing on the pitch, on the bench. We had 400 million pounds worth of players on the bench.
Yeah.
In a crucial game away from home against a top 10 opponent. Erik Ten Hag has always struggled to get results against top 10 opposition, especially away from home. Away from home. So you'll be asking yourself, what in the heaven's name is Johnny Evans, Matthias de Ligt and
Lisandro
Martinez. And I just said to myself, he's literally just punishing them for the awkward performance that they had in midweek. Because he took both of them off, if you do remember, in the Porto game, and then brought on Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. That was the signal for me that, you know what, there was something going to happen, something weird. We had a group discussion about it, and we're just joking about it, that could actually turn out to be a possibility. And for it to come to fruition, I was so disappointed. And I was saying to myself, last season, I had all these complaints about the fact that we had to get rid of our backline and sign a new backline that can play the kind of football that he wants us to play.
Yep.
And in big 2024, we are starting our oldest centre backs at the club, in Johnny Evans at the age of 36 and in Harry Maguire at the age of 32, in a crucial Premier League game ahead of an international break. And the reason he gave us rotation, how are you rotating ahead of an international break? This is a centre-back partnership that was Leicester City's centre-back partnership in, was it 2017, 2018?
Yeah.
Fast forward 6 years down the line, these two are starting for Manchester United.
Yeah.
Manchester United, after we spent a bucket load of money on our defense. That's the defense. Come to midfield, there was no defensive midfielder in front of the oldest centre-back partnership we could ever field in Premier League history. There was no defensive midfielder there. We spent 50 million pounds on literally wrestling with PSG to bring in Ugarte. And for some reason,
we already had Casemiro, a 70 million pound
player.
That also on the
but fine, you can say Casemiro's form is a bit dodgy, right? But yet he started him against Porto. I bet the fact that he's a former Porto player, Portuguese speaking, experienced, it's Europe. I get it. How is Ugarte not getting minutes? And he puts it down to him not adapting to the style of play, right? And then that he needs more time. I'm asking myself, has any player currently adapted to the style of play that he's trying to deploy for him to say Ugarte has not adapted? Because it looks clearly that not everybody seems to be in sync with what we are trying to do. What we are trying to do tactically isn't really on point. It's not really working. For him to say some players haven't adapted to the game model that he's talking about, I find out very, very strange. Eriksen started the absence game since the beginning of the season. This is a player who barely touched the ball in preseason. He barely started games in preseason. Community Shield, he was nowhere to be found. At the start of the season, I don't think he started our first game of the season. We sell McTominay, and all of a sudden, Eriksen is his new McTominay. Eriksen from nowhere, right? It's now starting back to back games. I'm not saying Eriksen is not putting in the weight, but if you are not playing any defensive midfielder and you're playing Eriksen with Kobe Mainoo in certain games, this is not Crystal Palace. This is not a bottom half team. Yeah. This is one of the best teams in the Premier League they were going to face, an informed side that had just beaten Bayern Munich. Yeah. And that was the central midfield pairing that he had gone with, in front of a very old centre-back partnership. Bruno Fernandes is out of form, out of sorts, but he's our captain, so he was bound to start. Yeah. And then the front line. Kwame, what's our best front line?
You have no idea.
It looks like we don't know who comprises our best front line, because there's one moment you are starting Ahmad and we think Ahmad deserves to be starting games. The next moment he's shanked onto the bench and he brings in Garnacho either on the right or the left. You can start Rashford and sometimes take Rashford off when Rashford is playing well. The man management that is going on in the squad, all in the name of rotation, doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden, it looks like nothing seems to be making sense. It's like everything that could go wrong with how he's managing the situation is actually going wrong. Call it Murphy's Law, call it whatever you want. I don't think he has total grasp of the situation. If you say you want to run routines into your squad, that your players need to be able to play well with each other over a period of time, and then it will click. Chopping and changing players does not
especially at the
hasten the
early stage
process
of the season.
of the
When we've
season.
not
We've barely played
more
any
than
games.
yes, exactly.
We've barely played that many games. This is not uh, late November, December that you are talking about a pylon of fixtures. How are you going to get any routines in your team playing well if you keep chopping and changing your back line, you keep chopping and changing your midfield, you keep chopping and changing your forward line? In as much as we create chances and we don't put the ball at the back of the net, some players may have to take responsibility for that. But if you keep chopping and changing, there is not going to be any form of continuity, any form of understanding, any form of telepathy in your forward line if you keep chopping and changing. He had Garnacho out there. He had Rasmus Højlund starting his first league game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And he also had Rashford starting the game.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the game itself. We set up, I think, in a 4-4-2 mid block, right?
Yeah.
And we set out to contain. From what I saw, the replay, watching the game without any pressure, any sentiment, any emotion, we set up not to lose that football game, but we're good enough at the end of the day to have won the game. I say this off the back of the fact that I don't think Villa even had their strongest team out there. Some of their key players were missing, especially in midfield. I feel if Onana had played that game on that day, he would have been in trouble. But no Onana, no McGinn. I think McGinn did not start.
McGinn didn't play. Yes.
Didn't play.
Ramsey didn't play as well.
Those two players in particular, the kind of energy they bring Aston Villa, especially in the middle of the park, would have been a huge problem for us in midfield. But the midfield that we were matched up against, we were able to contain.
Yeah.
We created a couple of half-decent chances, especially for Marcus Rashford. He seems to be on a decent spell of form. Unfortunately, our coach seems to be man-managing him for whatever reasons that may be. I bear the fact that he got a bit emotional. He could have easily been sent off. I get why he may have been substituted at that particular point in time. Yeah. But the management of Marcus Rashford over the past couple of weeks has been a bit iffy for me. He created our half-decent chances. Bruno Fernandes, I think, hit the crossbar from a free kick. We limited Villa to just a couple of shots at goal. I think they had one shot on target at the end of the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you say to yourself, we went in there, were disciplined against the Villa side that is on form, and under different circumstances, we will say a draw is a good point. But on the balance of play, after everything that we saw, you feel like we should have taken more from that football game. But it was back-to-back games where Erik Ten Hag's future had been called to question if he had lost them. And we didn't win them, but we didn't lose them either. It's very hard to make something of those kind of results. But at the end of the day, it comes back to the statistics. You've shown some of the statistics at the start of the podcast already. Yeah. We are worse off league position-wise than we were last season. We have the same number of very low points tally as we did last season. We have a negative goal difference. What is even weird about this team is Andre Onana, whom I feel is our best player this season, has been rewarded with 4 clean sheets in the Premier League in 7 games. You ask yourself, how have we lost a couple of games by 3-0? Yet we've been able to keep the most clean sheets in the Premier League.
I'll tell you.
We have scored the fewest amount of goals man can ever think about in the Premier. I think 5 goals in 7 games. Yes. What do you make of these stats?
I'll tell you why.
What do you make of these stats?
When there are 2 things. When United and Erik Ten Hag, when things are going bad, it goes very bad. And there is absolutely nothing we do. That's why we've conceded 6 goals in just 2 games. And we've conceded 8 goals in the 7 games that we've played in the league. 8 goals. But 2 of the games where things went bad, we couldn't arrest the situation. And we lost 3-0.
6 goals. At home.
At home. At Old Trafford. And at Old Trafford, this is the damning stat. We've scored just 1 goal in the league at Old Trafford. 1. The Joshua Zirkzee goal in the opening game is the only goal we've scored at Old Trafford. In that period, we've played Liverpool, we've played Spurs. We've not been able to score a goal in any of these games that we've played.
Do you know that no United player has scored more than 1 Premier League goal this season?
Correct.
All 5 Premier League goals have been scored by
5 different scorers. Yes. That is where we stand at the moment.
In as much as it's easy to blame the fact that players are not putting the ball at the back of the net, one would also say that part of this manager's job is to improve the players that we have bought. We have gone in for a
Absolutely.
lot of young players, and this is a
Absolutely.
coach who was renowned for developing young players from a club like Ajax. So, what has gone into, first of all, purchasing those players
Mm-hmm.
and improving those players this
Yeah.
season? I always say, I sound like a broken record every single
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm.
It is always going to come back to La Carrington. It is always Marcus Rashford and now Alejandro Garnacho.
Mm-hmm.
We have spent £200 million on the rest of our forward line, yet we cannot have any reasonable expectations for these players when it comes to the amount of goals they should be scoring for this football club.
Mm.
Anthony costs north of £80 million.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Højlund costs north of £60 million.
Yeah.
We're talking about Joshua Zexi, who costs north of £35 million.
Mm.
Amad Diallo, nobody really knows how much he costs, but a minimum £18 million
Mm-hmm.
about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He scored one goal, and basically you don't see a goal coming from anywhere
Mm.
else.
Mm.
What are our expectations for these players after spending all this amount of money on them? It doesn't make sense to me. But here we are.
Here we are.
He has to find something from somewhere. But then will he still be in the job? I think that's the
So that's the
next
next thing that we'll be talking
part
about.
of our conversation.
The next part of the second part of our conversation, we'll be looking at Erik Ten Hag. I mean, it's just a follow-up of everything that we've discussed. So the big men were in town, but before that, they were at Villa Park, except Joel Glazer, all the team, as you can see from the projected picture, they were all seated in the director's box at Villa Park. Sir David Brailsford, Sir Alex Ferguson, and everyone that you could think of were there observing. What happened was that these are pre-planned meetings, monthly meetings between the top brass of the club, that's the board, the owners, and then the management of the club, discussing pertinent issues with regards to everything that's happening around Manchester United. So it wasn't necessarily that this meeting was convened because of Erik Ten Hag. We need to put that on record. There were other things. The first day, which was on a Monday, after the game on Sunday, they went to Old Trafford, as you can see from this picture. That was Joel Glazer getting out of a car going to Old Trafford. Went to have a meeting, and that meeting also had Gary Neville. So our suspicion was that it had to do with the Old Trafford redevelopment issues and a few more things that they went to discuss. But the key meeting happened today on our recording, which is Tuesday. The meeting had to do with a variety of things, of which includes issues with regards to the coach of Manchester United. So in the morning, the pictures that we saw, the videos that we saw had all the top brass also going into that meeting. The meeting started around 9:30 or around 10 o'clock there-ish, UK time, and 5 p.m. the meeting was done. So it tells you that it was quite a lengthy meeting. The outcome, we don't know. Maybe by the time you're watching this podcast, an outcome would have come or something, a news would have come out of it. But the outcome is not yet known. No decision on Erik Ten Hag has been made. Even if it has been made, it hasn't been made public yet. Usually when there's a backing, you hear some briefing, which isn't official, but will be made known to the journalists who then write stories out of it. If there's a public situation or there is a news about his departure or anything, that would be made official. So as it stands, nothing has come out yet with regards to the issues that's happening. So the meeting has happened. Whatever was discussed, we have no idea of. Maybe right after you are watching or listening, news will be out or something, of which we will come back to discuss exactly what happens. That's if news comes out. But Kwame, let's look at the situation. So like I've given the explainer, so you understand exactly what everything that happened. But let's look at the key thing that people would want to hear, which has to do with the future of the coach of the club. A lot has happened, a lot has gone on. There's been conflicting news, some saying that they are preparing or they've spoken to, so some saying that there's been some are drawing the links to Thomas Tuchel, who was initially interviewed during the summer, but it came out that he won't be the coach of Manchester United after not having an agreement with the football leadership of the club at the time. And then there is other news that should, in case Erik Ten Hag should be allowed to leave, there is Ruud van Nistelrooy being lined up to take over as interim manager and all of that. a lot of news happening around. There's also news that the football leadership are still out there trying to see if they could give Erik Ten Hag some time so that they could see if he could turn things around. And that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is of the view that he wants the manager to leave. However, he is deferring everything to the football leadership, the people he has employed, termed the best of class to turn things around for the club, to make that decision. So, Kwame, what is really happening? What's your analysis of all the issues that's out there with regards to the manager?
You said everything that is happening. You are just coming to talk about the opinions.
That's opinion. So let's
that was a beautiful summary. Honestly, that was fantastic. You basically summed up everything in a But brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so all we can talk about is, should Erik Ten Hag? Do we think Erik Ten Hag should be sacked, or do we think Erik Ten Hag deserves more time? And do we think Ineos will sack him, or Ineos will give him more time? There are two different conversations.
Right.
Should he be gone, or should he stay? Will they actually pull the plug on him, or they wouldn't? I think we put up a poll on our Twitter handle.
Yes.
And it's clear people are not sure as to what Ineos will do, because the question was, what will Ineos do? Will Ineos sack him or not? I'm emphasizing the question was, will Ineos sack him or not? And less than 50% of fans were not sure whether Ineos will actually pull the plug on him. It just tells you that people are not really sure what the outcome of these meetings would actually be.
Right.
But let's be honest with ourselves. We have backed Erik Ten Hag before. In fact, most of the fan base have backed Erik Ten Hag over the hill. But you have to look at the stats and then the facts. We're retrogressing rather than progressing.
Correct.
You would want to see an upward curve, but everything points to us going downwards, be it in the Premier League, be it in Europe. The curve looks to be going downwards. Its tenure has only been salvaged by incredible cup runs. Incredible cup runs. His cup form, domestic cup form, let me re-emphasize, domestic cup form has been good, because in European competition, he has been just as poor as he has been in the league over the past 2 seasons. This even stretches to the latter part of his first season. If you talk about when our form started to dip, it was after the
Barcelona
Carabao. After the
Carabao Cup final. After the Carabao Cup final.
After the Carabao Cup final. So you ask yourself, what changed from that time? I think that time he felt that he had adapted to our squad from the start of the season. We had peaked in terms of our form and then results. We had just won a trophy, and he felt it was now time to kick on and play the style of football that he wants, instill his game model, and we tweaked the way that we're playing to be able to play in a different style. That culminated with the start of our injuries. If you do remember, Lisandro Martinez getting injured. Was it Luke Shaw also getting injured? Malacia also got injured. We limped across the line in those final days, but we're all happy because of the fact that we had won a trophy. We're comfortably in the top 4 spot. Because if you remember, we started dropping some points at the end, and then other teams were closing in and all that. But then
it was Liverpool at that time.
It was Liverpool at that time, but we beat Chelsea at that time to sort of cement, if you remember, that Casemiro 4-1, cement our top 4 spot. And in the end, it was comfortable. My fans were very satisfied with the season and not paying attention to the changes that were going on in terms of our style of play and in terms of the trajectory of our results. Come the second season, it got off to as poor a start as this season has gotten off to. But the injury situation was mounting. Yet, as we said so many times last season, as I said, let me be very specific, so many times last season, that it was clear to me he was still trying to implement a very specific style of play, irrespective of the number of injuries that we're having. And that was also affecting the results, of which we were saying that if we were able to get rid of certain players in the squad, replace them with players that fit the profile of the type of football that we want to play, things should get better. You've signed almost all those kind of players for him. He's either not playing them, and when he's playing them, whatever system that he has always wanted to implement since the back end of his first season
Right.
does not seem to be working.
Mm.
It's almost as if the players aren't grasping what he's doing. These are his own players. That's what we have to always emphasize.
Mm.
We don't have the mountain injury situation as we did in the second season for us to make it an excuse.
Yep.
But for left back, almost every position has had players available. Yet, we have not been consistent when we play against any team that has a decent manager or in the top half of the table or in Europe. We seem to struggle with the kind of football that we want to play. You ask yourself, if you were able to change before, if you preach dynamism, why don't you just say to yourself that this model is not working and that you need to completely ditch it and play in a different way? You do not have to play and insist on playing one style of football when it is evidently flawed. Just evidently not working. This inverted fullbacks thing that he's trying to play with Dalu and all those kind of things. It works every now and then. Most of the time, it doesn't work. You get what I'm trying to say? Most of the time, there are flaws, and it's almost like as if these players, because now we don't blame me, I don't blame players anymore. It's clear, I don't blame players anymore. These players are struggling in the system, yet you are persistent with it, and it's affecting results. And the more results are affected, the less confident this team becomes, the more we struggle. I feel we've hit a wall in terms of how far he can take us. And we've been here before. This is not the first time we've gotten to this stage. But as Manchester United, all we always do, I'm coming to the Ineos part, all we always do is always be sentimental about things and always, give it more time, give it more time. That is fair to coaches. It's fair. But then at the end of the day, it's the business of football. Coaches are hired to be fired. November of, was it 2021? We ended up sacking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But from the very start of the last season, you could tell.
2022. 2022.
Was it 2022? Yeah. 2022. We could have pulled the plug earlier, but we kept on hoping and wishing, and then it dragged on and it dragged on. And eventually, in November, the latter part of November, we had to call it quits. Turn the clock back a few years before then, Jose Mourinho in similar fashion. Was it 2017?
2018.
2018. I think we sacked him in December.
Yes. After the Liverpool
debacle. He's even pushed as far as December, when it was clear even from the summer and how the window went and how he was conducting himself and how our season started. Now that season was just going to be awful. We kept hanging on and hoping that things would improve, things would change. Unfortunately, none of that happened. I think we're at that stage again. You're asking yourself now, what do you think Ineos should do? This is what I think is going to happen. I don't think they'll sack him. And this is my reason. It's contrary to popular opinion, but I don't think they'll sack him. And this is the reason. You are one of Dan Ashworth's biggest fans. He's your role model, actually.
Yeah.
You followed his commentary from every single club. If people do not know, Dan Ashworth has never supervised the sacking of any manager before. In any of his former clubs. Not even once. I think the Ghana manager, what's his name? From Chris Hughton. He was the manager of Brighton and Albion some years. Just before Dan Ashworth had taken over as sporting director, he had been sacked. And he said that clearly in one of his interviews, that he got there and everything had happened already. He supervised,
Graham Potter.
Graham Potter at Brighton. Eventually, he left, went to Newcastle. And before he got to Newcastle, they had also sacked their manager before.
Correct.
And he worked. I bet the fact that even the working relationship with the coach at Newcastle, what's his name?
Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe wasn't even good. And we all know why it wasn't good.
Yeah.
They still somehow worked together for the longest period of time until he had to leave for Manchester United. What has Dan Ashworth always preached? Always preached patience. Always preached patience. And the truth of the matter is, he was backing his manager just a couple of weeks ago, not too long ago. I think just before the last international break, he went full on after the Liverpool game to back Erik Ten Hag. And he has only been in the job for a couple of months.
Right.
If he is to pull the plug, because what we have been hearing is ultimately the football people have to make the decision. He has to make the decision with his CEO. If he is to pull the plug, it will be very, very contrary to what Dan Ashworth actually stands for.
Yeah.
It's something he's never done before, something he's never preached before. Yet, if it does happen, I would find it strange. I'll be pleasantly surprised if it happens because, like I said, I think Erik Ten Hag has hit a wall, but I don't expect it to happen. But what it's going to do is just delay the inevitable. It's just going to delay the inevitable. Give it, let's say, a month.
Yeah.
Right? We would come back here and be having this very same conversation because this is what is going to happen. Results are always going to go up and down.
Yep.
You know, I gave him a 5-game ultimatum. This is what he did in the 5 games. He won a couple of them, I think, against...
He won 2. He won just 2.
Yeah, he won 2, a couple of them against the Barnsley.
Southampton and Barnsley. That
Southampton. Was it. 10-0.
Yes.
Drew 2 and then lost 1 very, very badly against Spurs. I was thinking we could have built on those fixtures and then gone on to have a better season because the coming fixtures are actually easier after the international break. They are not, if people can, those fixtures can be projected out.
Relatively easier.
Relatively easy. But the problem is, with the form that we have, with the coach in charge of the team now, like we've seen under previous managers, when they get to this very point, it doesn't matter the fixture anymore. It's not about the team you are facing. The problem becomes about us.
Yeah.
Do the players still believe in what Erik Ten Hag is doing? Does Erik Ten Hag even believe in what he's doing? Now he's chopping and changing even his own players.
Yeah.
He's punishing his own players. How are the players going to react to this? Everything becomes a mystery as to what Manchester United team will turn up on any given day. So give it playing against Brentford, playing against Leicester at home. Whichever team that we face, we just simply do not know what the outcome may be. It's just going to be up and down until we realize that this inconsistency cannot continue. Europe will be at risk. Manchester United has never missed out on qualifying for the Champions League on 2 consecutive seasons since the inception of the Premier League. If Ineos are serious about us getting back to playing Champions League football, getting back to the top, the earlier they make a decision on this, the better. But like I said, I do not expect this to be in this particular international window. We'll probably roll on for another month.
All right. Thank you very much, Kwame. So that's Kwame's analysis or opinion on everything that's happening around the club. He doesn't expect it to happen, and he's giving his reasons why. Very reasonable, very reasonable. But he's saying that we are delaying the inevitable because it will eventually happen. It will eventually happen. And that's where some of us have been. I came to say here that
we've seen this movie before, haven't we?
I came to say here that I've lost confidence in the manager, and I would be gladly surprised if he serves me a humble pie. I just want him to give it to me, that I am giving you the humble pie. This is
there are some people who are still hopeful that things can turn around. So if that does happen,
we'll give them.
We will humbly eat humble pie.
Oh yes, we'll take it.
Because see, if Manchester United is doing well, we are all happy. If Manchester United is doing well, you all love to watch the football. Every fan will love to watch the football.
We have just a minute to go. But what people don't realize is that some of us, we want the coach to go, but we still back him. We are still with him, right? The fact that he's hit a snag where we feel that he can't make a move anymore doesn't mean that when Man United is playing, we are supporting any team against him. That's not the situation. It doesn't work like that.
Manchester United should lose so that they sack Erik Ten Hag.
That thing it never makes sense to me. It has never and will never make sense. We have to win our games. I want that feeling, the winning feeling.
FPL, tell them where I am. Tell them where you are.
The next episode. We don't have time. So this is how we draw the curtain for today's edition of United and Everything Football. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. Our time is quickly running. We just have about some seconds to go. Thank you for being a part of the show. When we come back in the next episode, I promise we'll talk about FPL. We'll talk about it. See you on the next one. Thank you very much. Remember to subscribe, comment, like, and do everything that you do for us on the show.
And send us your videos. Send us your videos.
It's very, very important. We want to hear it. All right. Thank you very much. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.